You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
the podcast where we talk about all of the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders.
And under our beds.
And in our closets.
And together we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
That's pretty dark.
Love me some Nat King Cole. Speaking of
Nat
King Cole, he just popped
there
up on this big band playlist. I'm at it again.
You were on brand.
I'm back with the swing. I'm swinging around. I actually wish I was. I need more caffeine to do that.
We're all swinging around here.
I'm here. We're here.
I'm just going to tell you all up front. I think this is the most notes I've ever taken for an episode. Whether or not it ends up being that way will all be on the shoulders of editing
We'll
Christian.
see how much I cut. Just splicing and dicing.
We might have to, and that's okay. But every time I thought that I might be done or close to done, the research just kept on giving me stuff to talk about. And I felt a little bit better about myself when I realized that this was also like the longest entry that I think I've ever seen on TV tropes. Because, you know, I will always go check TV tropes for any nuggets of like,
every time.
Fun every single episode. And
every time. Yeah.
This is the longest list of tropes on TV tropes that I've seen. I was like, okay, it's not just me. Like this movie, every moment, every joke has a reference.
Yes.
There's so much Hollywood history here. And then that's not even touching on the really touchy subjects that this uncovers as far as the allegory and the child star aspect.
We haven't even started on that stuff yet.
Haven't even begun.
My gosh. I'm glad you're doing this episode and not me, because I would be working myself into a frenzy.
I figured you'd be struggling with this one. And it also I'm glad it has the, like we talked about last time, it has such a personal connection for me, because I think if it didn't, I already would have thrown it out the window, because it's just so much. So,
yeah,
I'm really hopeful that I can guide all of you, dear Darklings, through some of the most interesting, to me, it's all subjective, but the most interesting Hollywood trivia that I could find behind some of Hollywood's most long-standing institutions, right alongside some of Hollywood's most long-standing pitfalls.
Yeah, you guys...
Welcome, friends, to That's Pretty Dark.
Welcome to tonight's episode of That's Pretty Dark, part 2 of Cats Don't Dance. Mm-hmm. My name is Christian Mott.
My name is Kaylin Andrews, and I hope by the end it still is, because we may not know which way is up.
Yeah, we may totally forget everything we've ever known.
So let's just dive in. Let's buckle up. Y'all get cozy, get comfy.
I'm too cozy and comfy. It's been rainy all afternoon. And
you're not allowed to get cozy.
All I want to do is curl up in a ball.
I
I even just made some hot tea, and that's all I want to do is go look out the window, full of whimsy, and just watch the rain trickle down the window.
Well, that's
pane.
maybe what our listeners get to do while they listen.
With my cup of Irish tea. It's so warm in my hands. It's wonderful.
So,
anyway, take it away. Get us started.
As is my custom, I've broken this up into several sections to better purify and clarify the darkness for our analysis and any kind of structure that I could possibly cling to as I got through these notes.
Yes, Monica, we love structured, organized fun. It's the best thing.
Exactly. Yeah, you guys know me.
Play within the confines of the playground.
Exactly. And I think in this first section, which I titled Hollywood Heyday, it's important and worthwhile for us to take note of some of this film's straightforward old Hollywood Easter eggs and references and locations.
Yeah.
Because, of course, even the shiny parts of Hollywood can be pretty dark.
Ooh, yeah.
The film features the fictional Mammoth Pictures, which is a pretty close parody of MGM, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios, complete with the head honcho character Louis B. Mammoth being a tribute to MGM's co-founder, Louis B. Mayer.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Mammoth Pictures logo is based on the MGM logo, but with an elephant rather than a lion. And the MGM Pictures logo sports the Latin motto, Optimum est Maximum, or bigger is better. While MGM's actual motto is
Ars Gratia Artis. Ars.
A-R-S.
Ars Gratia Artis. That's what I'm going with.
And in Latin, this means art for art's sake.
Yeah, all right.
Which is, I think, a pretty upstanding motto for a film studio.
Yeah, I wish they still lived by that motto. What are the...
I know...
What's the whole line on the slander there of a different studio in Hollywood sort of using the whole brand of another studio?
Well, I
jumping the gun? Am I
trying to figure that out myself, and I have a bunch of history of MGM, and honestly, it's just too much to even go into, so it might be something that we save for a bonus episode or a Patreon episode.
That sounds good.
But
the
ties between these two studios, being Warner Brothers and MGM, go back a long, long way. But as you've taught us already, Christian, in 1995, Time Warner, Warner Brothers' parent company, made a deal to acquire Turner Broadcasting, which included not only the pre-May 1986 MGM Film and Television Library, but also the pre-1948 Warner Brothers Library.
That's true. They did acquire MGM. That was one of the whole things that Turner
and we talked about that a little bit last
yeah.
time, but I think just remembering that relationship between Warner Brothers and MGM will help us to make more sense of this film. Because as I started out, I was like, wait a second, but that's not them, but they're talking about themselves, and they're poking fun at themselves, but it's not really themselves, and it's not. But
that's true.
For all intents and purposes, with that purchase, Warner Brothers ended up owning the entire film library of MGM, like all the Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies, all that stuff. So
right.
That's kind of how these two things came together.
Ars gratia artis.
Art for art's sake.
Wow, how about that?
And in our opening moments,
once upon a time, there was a princess and a peasant.
I forgot that this film actually started off as a fairy tale with a classic Once Upon a Time. But I do love it, even if it is featuring Darla.
Yeah.
She had fame, she had fortune, she had product endorsements. But she was not what she seemed.
But she is not what she seems.
I love how tongue-in-cheek it is the whole time.
Yes. Like from the beginning, from the very first moment. On the other hand, we get to watch as Danny, a seemingly big fish or a cat in a small pond, has his whole entire town of Kokomo sending him off to stardom. And this approach makes things crystal clear for the young viewer right from the beginning. I also love how it kind of swirled together the fiction and the making of fiction in my child mind, because this is a fairy tale about making a fairy tale, about making movies. It's very meta.
This is how Darla sees herself.
Mm-hmm. And how she wants others to see her.
Very much like the poodle.
May or may not.
The poodle from Oliver and Company. What's her name?
Georgette.
Georgette, yes.
His world was about to clash with hers in a place called Hollywood.
By the way, Peter Renaday is the narrator voice that we hear.
Yeah.
He also voices Master Splinter in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
No way.
As well as Abraham Lincoln in the Hall of Presidents, and both Henry and Max in Country Bear Jamboree.
Oh my
at
God.
Magic Kingdom.
Two of the things I avoided most when I went to Disney World as a child.
These extra little credits that I will see. Hey, I love the Country Bear Jamboree.
It's kind of fun.
And
now.
you can't beat the air conditioning in the Hall of Presidents.
No.
But whenever I was giving us our cast list last time, like a dummy, I was like, there's not much else Pretty Dark to report. There's much more Pretty Darkness to report. So I will tie those cast members in as we go in these minor roles, because there are some doozies among them.
You thought you were going to get away real easy with all that.
I'm being punished. Trust me. This whole process has been me being punished. Then we get our opening credits sequence with my favorite song from the film. And it's just so nice to see this as he's crossing the U.S.
Yeah.
In this scene, he also passes a covered Mount Rushmore, which unveils itself as completed as the bus drives by it. Although, by the way, it wouldn't be finished until late 1941. So it wasn't ready yet in 1939. And we get our first look at the city, including the Hollywood sign in the distance. And this also gave me pause right out of the gate, because I knew from several of my studio tours on my family vacations to LA, even before I knew that TV Tropes had pointed it out, thank you very much, that the Hollywood sign, as we know it today, used to say Hollywood Land.
Yeah,
and a quick Google search reminded me that the land part of the sign was removed during a restoration project in September of 1949.
Dang.
So if this
they
movie
should have
is
just
meant to
done
be set in
Hollywood Land.
1939, it still should have said Hollywood Land.
Like, I can understand the choice, but how fun would it be if it was,
Like really to the time period.
much more authentic?
But yeah, I get it too. I understand why they would do it that way. It's a little more timeless when we look back at it today as well.
Yeah.
Of course, though, this got me jonesing to reacquaint myself with the story of the Hollywood sign, and I don't know of another time on That's Pretty Dark when we'll get to do so. So,
Go for it, yeah.
you want to hear about the Hollywood sign?
Let's hear about it.
Wikipedia helped me out with this, but the original sign was erected in 1923, and again, originally read Hollywoodland, and it was to promote the name of a new housing development in the hills above the Hollywood district of LA, and advertised as a superb environment without excessive cost on the Hollywood side of the hills.
Okay.
This housing development contracted the Crescent Sign Company to erect 13 south-facing letters on the hillside.
13.
Crescent's owner, Thomas Fisk Goff, designed the wooden sign in 30-foot wide and 50-foot high white block letters.
Mm-hmm.
And it had around 4,000 light bulbs in the completed sign, which would flash alternating between successive segments of Hollywood land and then all together as a whole Hollywood land.
I feel like that would get so annoying if you were like outside looking at it.
It depends on how close
in
you
your
live to
view
it.
and how bright it was.
Right.
Oh my God. Can you imagine being like the house on the back end where it's like just outside your bedroom window in the backyard?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like,
as we do kind of know from today, it's kind of hard to get to. It's in a little bit of a precarious place, and it's around the Griffith Observatory, so it's kind of distanced from most residential places, but even still, it's pretty funny.
I know I've seen it, but I was a child. It's been a long, long time. Are they still made of wood?
Well, no, they're not actually.
I wouldn't think it would be. I would think it would be something much more
This project at first
permanent.
cost around $21,000, which would be equivalent to almost $400,000 in 2023. And the sign was officially dedicated in 1923, but it was intended to last only a year and a half.
Oh, okay.
This was also during the rise of the American cinema industry in Los Angeles, and this gave it widespread visibility, causing it to be left for far longer than that.
Right.
It stood for over a quarter of a century, still spelling out Hollywood land. But this illumination was switched off in about 1933 because the new owners decided it was too expensive to maintain the electricity.
Nice. Okay.
The sign's unprotected wood and sheet metal structure deteriorated over the years, and in 1978, in large part because of the public campaign to restore the landmark by Alice Cooper, the chamber set out to replace this deteriorated sign with a more permanent structure.
Vinyl.
Yeah, a final draft.
Vinyl
These
with a
9
V.
donors. She said final.
Dr. Vink. V.
9 donors gave close to $30,000 each, which altogether would be equivalent to over $1 million in 2023, to sponsor replacement letters that were made of steel and supported by steel columns on a concrete foundation.
That makes more sense than vinyl.
It does. The new letters were 44 feet tall and ranged from 31 to 39 feet wide. And the new version of the sign was unveiled on November 11th, 1978, as the culmination of a live CBS television special commemorating the 75th anniversary of Hollywood's incorporation as a city.
That's cool. I mean, I guess I get it. Can you imagine if like the Statue of Liberty was only like temporary and they were like, well, I guess
it's kind of popular.
I guess we can't really take it down. Now,
yeah, it just became a landmark.
People like it. Yeah, that is cool though.
Among the 9 donors was Alice Cooper herself, as well as Hugh Hefner.
And
other Hollywood bigwigs and corporate moguls.
Since I was a little kitten, I had a dream. My name in lights, Danny the song and dance cat.
Danny's arrival song brings us along as he gets his first glimpses of Hollywood, where stars don't shine at night, they walk around in broad daylight. Various billboards feature parodies of famous movies and stars such as The Duck, which could be seen as a nod to the Maltese Falcon. The celebrities caricatured in the film in order were Jimmy Durante, Betty Davis, Stan Laurel, Oliver Hardy, Mae West, Joan Crawford, Cary Grant, W.C. Fields, and Clark Gable.
I knew it had to be Betty Davis. It looked
Yes.
so much like her.
Yeah, Mae West as well, when I saw her. And I was almost surprised to realize how long many of these actors had been working. The fact that they were already working in 1939, already famous, even when my grandparents weren't born yet, or were just born.
Yeah, in their primes.
And I was surprised by how many of them that I recognized, just on sight alone.
I didn't know all their names, but I was like, hey, there's a face.
That's
That's
face
another
I know.
face.
We also see mentions and marquees of The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind throughout the film, which were both, in fact, released in 1939.
Oh, that's cool. All right.
Some other real-life icons and landmarks that we see on Sunset Boulevard include the famed Brown Derby and the Trocadero, which was an upscale nightclub. And I didn't know this, but this nightclub was where paparazzi would go to take pictures of the stars, like the earliest iterations of those ideas.
Oh, wow.
And that is because the Trocadero was owned by the owner of the Hollywood Reporter, William Wilkerson. He owned both businesses, so he used one to feed the other.
It was designed for publicity's sake.
By design.
That was the whole point. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually pretty cool. That's pretty cool history.
Perhaps most iconically, we see the famous Grauman's Chinese Theater as Danny lands on a cement block that bears Gene Kelly's cement hand and footprints. The theater and its star-studded, footprinted forecourt are some of the most recognizable locations situated on the Walk of Fame, and they certainly made me feel like I'd made it when I visited there.
Yeah, I remember going there too when I was a kid. I always thought it was Mann's Chinese Theater.
It was at one point.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
It changed hands a bunch of times, and that's honestly just a rabbit hole that we don't have time to go down. But
Yeah.
I highly suggest that you check out the history of the theater because it is super, super cool. And I do want to take a second to talk about the footprints because that's something that is just iconic to Hollywood in general. And it kind of started the whole idea of like immortalizing these stars in Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always wondered like what that's about and like why we do that.
The theater opened on May 18th, 1927, which was almost 100 years ago.
Damn.
Wild. And during its construction, Gene Klausner was hired by Grauman to formulate this extremely hard concrete for the forecourt of the theater. And Klausner later became known as Mr. Footprint because he would himself perform the footprint ceremonies from 1927 through 1957.
I love feet.
But why?
Call me Mr. Footprint.
Listener and Christian, why did we start putting footprints and handprints into the forecourt of Grauman's Chinese Theater?
I hate that you're asking me because I don't know.
We actually don't know in general at all. But
No
there
one
are
knows.
several stories. There are several theories, I should say.
Well, I love being just adequate. That's really
The theater's
great.
official account credits Norma Talmadge as having inspired the tradition when she accidentally stepped into the wet concrete. However, in a short interview during the September 13th, 1937 Lux Radio Theater broadcast, Grauman himself relayed another version of how he got the idea to put the hand and footprints in the concrete. He also said it was pure accident, but he said he himself walked right into it. And then he immediately went to Mary Pickford and had Mary do the same thing.
Okay.
Klausner himself recounted that he had autographed his work next to the right-hand poster kiosk after he had poured the concrete, and then Grauman and he developed the idea there.
To just continue as a tradition.
Right. However, in 1949, Klausner changed his story to say that Grauman accidentally stepped into the wet concrete.
Huh.
So, we don't know. We don't know if he just misremembered. We don't know if it was he decided it was just a funnier story. We don't know if it was originally accidental and then he said, hey, if everybody's stepping in it, I might as well sign my work.
Yeah, that's funny.
We don't know. But everybody has their version, however fictionalized. And I think that's kind of charming for a place that is meant to cement fiction.
I think it's aliens.
It's probably aliens. The theater itself was dedicated as a historic and cultural landmark in 1968, and it still stands there today, but now it's owned by the same investment group that owns the very nearby Hollywood and Highland Shopping Center where the Dolby Theater is housed. So they've, done the Academy Awards at all these different places right there on the same block, basically.
Right, yeah.
But knowing that it has been owned at different times by both Time Warner and Warner Brothers makes its presence here in this movie even more layered.
Well, hi there, ma'am. How you doing?
Fresh off the bus and bathed in a
What's
glow
your
of
name
optimism,
there?
Danny
Okay.
bebops his way
I'm
through the
Danny.
opening number and
Why
into
don't
the
you stop
offices of Farley Wink, Animal Acting
Just
Agent.
right in.
This is where he will
straight
receive
in.
his first reality check. See what I did there? He's going to get a check because he gets paid, but
Wow.
it's also a reality check because he's coming to Hollywood.
I was thinking, they didn't have reality TV back then. What are you talking about?
No, I was proud of it. Anyway.
I just kept thinking, where's the hotel? Where's he staying? Where's he living?
It really isn't explained, is it? We just see him
No,
at work, not
he
so
just
much in the evening time.
Just waltzes right into the agency and then right into the studio.
I'm here, I've arrived. And there's not much more Hollywood to me than this scene. It's so familiar, both the actual motions and the whole concept of it, with all of these hopeful actors lined up in various states of success and duress, ready to audition or work with an agent on their big break. And it's here that we meet, or are introduced to, by the effusive Tilly Hippo.
Oh, yeah.
Most of our side characters, including Francis, Cranston, TW, and eventually Sawyer, whom Danny accidentally pushed into a fountain during some of his earlier choreography.
Hi, I'm Tilly. This is Cranston. Cranston, Danny. Danny, TW. TW, Danny. Danny, Francis. Francis, Danny. TW, Cranston. Cranston, Franny, Francis. So, new in town?
Like we said last time, when we meet TW, he reads off a fortune cookie.
My fortune cookie last night said, "Give it up, you loser."
And there's a whole spectrum of delusion and disillusion throughout Hollywood. And I think we see it all here in this room. just as I'm sure you could in many of these real rooms.
They did a really good job of capturing that, like, hopeful hopelessness.
Yes, hopeful hopelessness. You're hopeful, but you don't want to be too hopeful. And then, with everybody at different stages of their career, they've adopted a certain level of cynicism or not so much.
Right.
It's really cool the way they did it. And then we have Farley Wink, who personifies that fast-talking, quick sign here on the dotted line kind of predatory vibe that's present in many agencies, both reputable and not so much.
Wow, this is a dream come true.
Yeah. But don't forget, 10% of that dream is mine. Welcome to Hollywood!
Everything's faster here than in Kokomo. And it's wild watching this whole process, knowing that digital and self-taped auditions have almost made this whole idea a relic of the past. Not to say that there aren't still agencies and open calls, but everything works so differently now.
It's true.
Some of my favorite quotes from Cats Don't Dance come from this scene. Danny's optimistically declaring that he figures he'll land a big part by Friday, and they all kind of look at him, hesitate for a second, and then Tilly kind of elbows them, and they're like, sure, yeah, great, why not? Why not Thursday?
Why not Thursday?
Why not Thursday?
That was my favorite part. I was like, oh, this is going to be a funny movie. This is going to be clever.
It is, and it holds up. It really does.
It's very well written.
When Sawyer enters, they ask her, did you walk under a ladder, break a mirror? And she says, no, a cat crossed my path.
Oh, man, nice. What a meet cute, though.
It is a great meet cute.
It's a pretty good one. Wet cat.
As we meet and get to know Sawyer, we realize that she might be the most cynical of all the animals.
To the glamour of filing, the romance of taking.
And to be honest, these things did seem romantic to me as a kid when I was watching it, which, how the mighty have fallen,
Wow. Yeah.
In a quick back and forth standoff between Sawyer and Farley, as he's attempting to cast her and comparing himself to Clark Gable, we even get a thinly veiled
Frankly, Clark, I don't give a...
Sawyer.
I'm a secretary.
and stop short.
I like
This
that
is
one.
a reference that would have in context been from a contemporary film, which is really funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's not just saying it for the audience, but in context, that makes sense as like a reference from a film that was, that was out at the time.
Of course, they'd be quoting movies
Which I
that were
love.
coming out at that time period.
Just like we do today.
Like we do today.
All the time. Danny's eagerness translates to bumbling and too green for the seasoned Sawyer to relate to here as they are cast together in a new motion picture. We transition from the agency office to the studio lot of the larger-than-life Mammoth Pictures, where they walk through the set of The Wizard of Oz, and we begin to get a glimpse of the unfair treatment of the animal characters.
Oh, I'm telling you, one more plucking scene and holy, right in the dishes.
So aggravating, humiliating. I'm out of this picture business.
There's no place like home, there's no place like home, there's no place like home, there's no place like...
I kind of really liked this a lot.
I liked it a lot because
Yeah.
it was, again, contemporary films, but we're seeing a comedic take on what was very unjust, honestly. Not animal actors, but, obviously in the allegory, people of color.
The allegory.
Those who are not mainstream, we'll say, aka white.
White.
We also meet the famed King Kong.
Yeah.
And King Kong is voiced by D. Bradley Baker.
How's the picture coming?
Ooh, don't get me started.
D. Bradley Baker's first major experience on national television was on the Nickelodeon game show Legends of the Hidden Temple from 1993 to 1995, where he was not
What?
only the announcer, but also the giant talking rock god, Olmec.
Oh, that's so cool. I want to do an episode on that.
Yeah, we should. There's probably a lot to say.
And speaking of the King Kong moment, I love how they just, without commentary, just layered in homosexual characters.
Mm-hmm. But again, notice among the marginalized.
Of course, yes, absolutely, absolutely. But it's
Which-
almost like they did it intentionally without drawing attention to it, which I
because
really
it's
like.
part of the story. It's part of the history.
I really think it's cool.
I'm also going to take an opportunity because there was an alligator credited with a speaking role at some point, and although I've watched this movie probably 6 times this week now, I don't know where the alligator makes his appearance.
Yeah.
But since I'm giving you a voice credit, I wanted to make sure that I tell you that this alligator, this mysterious alligator, was voiced by Tony Pope, who appeared in over 100 titles during his 3-decade career, including as the voice of Goofy from 1979 to 1988 and
No
several
way.
anime roles. But jaw-droppingly, and we may have spoken about him before and maybe I'm just forgetting because we do that,
Sure.
Pope also provided the voice for the Tiger Electronics toy Furby.
No way.
Did we talk about Tony Pope when we talked about Furby?
I don't know.
You can cut this editing, Christian, but I have no clue, so
That's cool.
I can't remember anything anymore. But
whether you did or didn't, that's cool.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that we had all these little pretty dark credits, I was like, I should never have said that there's nothing more pretty dark to report, because I will always be proven wrong every time I say that. There is always pretty darkness to report.
A list of things I've said with confidence. I will never use curse words.
Sure,
I
same.
will never drink. I will never smoke
Same.
cigarettes. I will never get tattoos.
Yeah, I know. We got to just let ourselves keep evolving, you know?
There are
We gotta
more,
leave
but I
room
don't
for
want to say
growth.
them on the air. So
We also see a very meta Hollywood studio tourist tram go by. Not to upset the illusion, but studio tours weren't really a thing until the 1960s.
it was sort of an anachronistic
Mhm.
version of Hollywood.
It's not the only anachronism that we find. And speaking of, they're also headed for stage 13. And like many high-rise buildings that omit a 13th floor, from everything I can tell, including looking at studio websites in the modern era,
They don't have stage
the major
13s.
studios also omit a 13th soundstage going directly from 12 to 14.
I did not know that. That's really cool.
There are no 13th sound stages, supposedly.
That's so cool.
Prove me wrong if I'm wrong, as always. But
I'm sure there are some that do.
I get it. I understand why they wouldn't do it. You know,
Some
Who would-
hotels
like,
have a 13th
people
floor.
funding, right? People funding a film might not want to be on the unlucky stage 13, which this film, Little Archangel, is. I did find out though that MGM's 14th soundstage was in fact where they filmed the Wizard of Oz tornado scenes. So it isn't
wow.
inconceivable that they would have walked through the set of Wizard of Oz in
That's
real
really
life.
awesome.
If this were a real life movie.
So many ties to Wizard of Oz into movie night
Mhm.
2-part series that we've done. So many references in Little Nemo.
Wizard of Oz is a titan. It changed everything.
We're gonna cover it.
We will. We have to. We absolutely have to. But it changed the course of everything, for sure.
Quiet on the set, please. Quiet! Miss Dimple is ready to begin. Lights, camera,
Action!
cue the elephant.
When we arrive on stage 13, we find that they're shooting the opening sequence for the film, which is such a funny and practical detail for us to see, because this is the 30s.
Right.
Rather than a lion roaring, we've got an elephant trumpeting in a wig.
Yeah.
This is Woolly B. Mammoth, who we will meet later.
I do want to point out, though, for anybody who's not really aware of how movies are made, you don't shoot them from opening credits all
Certainly
the way
not.
to the end in one take.
No.
It's not how it goes.
Even in the 30s, they didn't shoot them chronologically. But
No, you would shoot a really big scene on a sound stage and you would try to get as much of it as you could. And you do the big scene over and over and get pieces or whatever and then cut it together. But you don't shoot a film from beginning to end
definitely
for
not.
an hour and a half.
But for the purposes of this, it was rather funny.
I like that.
Like I said, this film that they've been cast in is called Little Archangel, evidenced by the giant mural and various pairs of background animals dressed in the binary blue and pink.
Lord of mercy.
But guess what?
What?
A biblical film like this likely would not have been produced in this time period due to the Hays Code.
Oh, yeah.
And its general sentiments about respectful Christian and biblical portrayals.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the only things we've ever discussed before recording an episode of like how to talk about something, which is
Yep.
cool.
I typically,
was fun
we
to
keep our
kinda break
notes
it down.
secret from each other until we're saying them. But in this case, I had so much stuff I really needed decision-making help. And I have so much information about the Hays Code that we're probably going to have to do a bonus episode or something on just the history of it. And I think it's important, for what we do and what we talk about to have that,
We have
recorded.
mentioned it. We've mentioned it a few times.
But the Hays Code was a set of rules and regulations that determined what was permissible to be depicted on screen by film studios.
Right.
It came from an earlier draft of do's and don'ts in the 1920s to a full-blown manifesto. This was all due to increasing political pressures of the time, but it came about so that the studios could govern themselves without direct government intervention. That seems preferable until you realize the kinds of things that were included in the Hays Code.
Yeah.
Because under the guise of respecting people, it was written with very, very heavy Catholic undertones by several clergy members. And it included line items forbidding LGBTQ representation, interracial marriage, premarital sex in any positive light, and served to unnecessarily police a very Christian-focused standard of morality.
Very extreme censorship.
Like the definition of censorship. And I say that they probably wouldn't have made a film like this because of the way that it kind of pokes fun at this Bible story. Because they were very serious about when and how to use the name of the Lord.
Little Archangel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and any of his servants, I suppose. The Hays Code was finally fully abandoned by the 60s in favor of our current MPAA rating system.
Funny enough, though,
thank goodness.
The whole film noir like genre, it was sort of invented because of the Hays Code. Like the whole aesthetic and the style of it and the ways that they had to get inventive to portray violence and murder and such on screen.
The silhouettes and
so many shadows. That's why that exists. And that's actually the point that we've made before, specifically about
the
using shadows.
Because they had
it was Brave Little Toaster we talked about the
saying
shadows.
It.
Yeah, they had to get very creative. That became an entire art, like that became an entire philosophy and an approach to filmmaking was to sneak around the Hays Code.
Isn't it so weird that like the most strict,
I think that's so fun.
Like stringent things out of that, even more art and creativity is born.
Yeah, honestly.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Good for us. Good for humanity. Life finds a way. Didn't we say that before? We say it often.
Life finds a way. Thank you, Jurassic Park. Thank you, Michael Crichton. Yeah, you got to find a way to get the nasty stuff out of here, like sex.
I mean, it was
gender
everything.
identity.
Like I said,
sexual orientation, icky stuff like that.
Even
like,
interracial relationships were very explicitly outlawed in the Hays
race.
Code, and all of it is absolutely wild to me that it ever existed.
For anyone who doesn't know, I'm being tongue-in-cheek, but
oh man, okay, we could go on a tangent,
yeah,
but I'm gonna keep us on track. We're gonna keep moving because we are now on set of Little Archangel, which is of course a retelling of the biblical story of Noah's Ark, but this one centers the fictional starlet Darla Dimple as the titular angel descending from the heavens to save some of the animals, not all, and that's explicitly mentioned.
I do love some of the lyrics of her song.
Yes, we are getting there
as
dark,
we
speak.
Actually.
It is pretty dark. As a kid, I do remember being super confused with there being no mention of Noah. I was like, where's Noah?
There are no humans. It's just to save some of the animals.
The animals and the angels. Yeah, in this world, all of the humans drown, which we'll talk about it now. So there was this non-scriptural angel character that they've just thrown in there, which as a kid I was like, huh?
Right.
Because trust me, if I knew one thing, I knew the story of Noah's Ark.
Now the people, they were so bad that the Lord made the rain come down. And he washed away their bad cities, and he washed away their bad towns, and all of the people drowned.
And we see, in silhouette, by the way, the people wash away in shadow behind her. Dark.
The lyrics just sound like a Me Without You song.
The animals, it was different, though some of them drowned too. The others were just poor animals.
As were the ones that drowned, by the way. So she built a little boat, as cute as it can be, and she put all her animals 2 by 2 in her little boat on the sea. And it goes on like this until it doesn't. Because Danny, determined to show this crew what he's got, he begins rehearsing his line, which is a singular meow. And
I love these references. That's so cool.
He's trying so hard to get noticed and enlarge his role, so he's strategizing about how to best play up the line. And he does several impressions, including Edward G. Robinson that we just talked about with Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Meow, see?
Meow, see?
Meow. Meow. You ain't never meow. Meow, see? Yeah, that's it. Meow, meow.
They're really leaning into those caricatures. And of course, this leads to Danny really going for it during the scene. And he does manage to successfully steal the show by creating chaos and upending the whole thing. This is when we see Darla's angelic, on-screen, public-facing persona shift gears into its menacing reality. I just remember, as a kid, all this screaming. So much screaming. She's just screaming nonstop.
I saw the anger coming. I was like, okay, this is going to end badly. I did not know the lengths that they were going to go with it. I didn't know the extreme.
Because they're showing
She screams for like 5 minutes straight.
Just screaming.
It's really, really impressive, actually.
It's an impressive show from the voice actress, for sure. But I also remembered as a kid the ominous overture when Darla's would be comically oversized if it weren't so menacing bodyguard and butler Max enters to set Danny back on the straight and narrow.
Max scares me.
How does the kitty cat go?
Meow.
Very good.
He is scary. He's meant to be scary.
He's so big.
He's so much bigger than anybody else, and the music that accompanies him every single time.
He's bigger than the King
tells you
Kong
how you need to feel.
animal actor.
Oh yeah, he's far bigger than King Kong.
It was so scary.
Not only do these hapless moments of Danny's begin to craft the enemies to lovers romance that's so endearing, but they set the stage, or the soundstage, for my next segment, which is Animals as Allegory. Bet you didn't see that coming.
Well, I did, kind of.
Probably should have.
Yeah.
Once the dust is settled, Danny happens upon his friends who are making a joke now at his expense.
Besides, it was much more like
The shame and embarrassment of this moment was so tangible to me as a child on both of their parts, because like, how dare they be making fun of him in that way so openly?
Yeah.
And then how dare he step so far out of line that it warranted them mocking him like this? I could not fathom either option.
His peers are mocking him.
His peers, exactly. The people pleaser in me was so strong and so big and so loud that I just couldn't. Either idea seemed so foreign to me.
I feel like I have definitely made fun of someone who has overheard me.
I'm sure I have as well, but I live in fear of it, truly. It is one of my greatest fears.
I have also been witness to people making fun of me, and it's not fun. It doesn't feel very good.
No, it's not a good time. As I grew, I learned, and I try not to put myself in those positions, but we're all just human or animal.
Which, speaking of, I just ran into two people that I went to school with as a kid growing up. I was out for my birthday this past weekend, and they were like, "Hey, Christian, hey, it's us, people that you used to know." And it was really weird and trippy, but we were briefly talking about old times and growing up in the same school.
Nice.
And they confirmed that I was indeed made fun of.
Helpful.
When I was very young.
It's validating, to know that it actually happened and
they
that
were
your
like,
reality was not
you were
askew.
You were. One of them was one of the nerds with me. Like, we would play Pokemon, trade Pokemon cards. So he at least admitted that he was also made fun of.
Wow.
It was kind of fun.
It's good. You know me, I love nostalgia. Any opportunity that I can get to talk about the good old days.
The bad old days.
Or the bad old days. Danny, to his credit, is far less deterred by any of this than I would have been.
Well, I guess this is going to set me back a whole day.
He's way more optimistic than I would have been.
Maybe only half a day.
Maybe only half a day.
Maybe only half.
What is it with you? Why are you so determined to make a fool of yourself?
What do you mean? All I want to do is the thing I love. Doesn't everyone?
This really struck a chord for me. And though Sawyer says it's not that simple, he objects. He says, it is in Kokomo. And she says, well, then maybe that's where you should have stayed.
Damn.
And he's dejected, but still seems keen on making his dreams a reality. Now abandoned on the lot, Pudge approaches Danny, still humming from earlier, although he recognizes Danny's mood and says, oh, better not sing right now, which I thought was just so cute. Like, that's just such a childlike thing to do.
What's a dimple kid's problem? I thought you were great today.
And they commiserate, and Danny realizes that he's inspired something in Pudge, which reignites his own spark, and we're going to see that happen several more times throughout the film, because sharing your passion with someone else often does reignite that spark.
Seriously, though.
He begins coaching Pudge on some steps, and as if by magic, they begin to hear some swinging music, which is very reminiscent of Princess and the Frog, by the way.
Oh, hey,
Don't you hear
about
it?
That.
Can you hear it?
I can hear the rain, actually. It just began pouring down.
Oh,
rain
great.
outside.
Great.
And, yeah.
The vibes are good. There's rain in this movie.
I feel it.
Noticing the light on in an old trailer or wagon, I don't really know, on the back lot, Pudge and Danny wander over and they find themselves catapulted into his living room, Pudge landing on the piano.
That's it. B flat. Why, you have a natural rear for music, little fellow.
You've got a natural rear for music, little fellow. Instead of an ear for music, rear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
I've always loved the idea of this, though, that somewhere, even on a quiet backlot, there's a glowing light, a poignant piano, and I love that humans or animals in this case, will always find and always create these little pockets of art and connection and joy, even when there is so much corruption and disappointment and conflict surrounding them.
It does feel like Princess and the Frog. They like make some gumbo and the whole neighborhood gets together, and it's like you see the hard times during the day, and then at night they have the community. It's just nice.
It feels like that community. Humans can't help themselves. We can't help ourselves. Like that's how we draw ourselves back together when everything divides us, pulls us apart. The music and the connection and the glow of the warm living room with peanut tea.
The glow of that TV screen.
I feel like this kind of connection is what we're all here for.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme.
Did you know the peanut is not a nut at all? And it's not a pea for that matter either.
But as they share peanut tea, which made so much sense to me as a kid that an elephant would drink.
And I love that he just goes on and on and on about this peanut tea.
He continues to talk about it. He loves the peanuts. He talks about the history of the particular nut that has made this tea.
It's wonderful.
And he's so into it and so excited to have company. And I laughed too when he picked up the oven mitt, which was clearly way too small for his hands. But of course it wasn't for his hands. It was for his trunk.
Yeah.
This guy, Wooly, he's great. He's so kind. He's so kind and welcoming to them. He's seemingly a respected institution to the studio. But it turns out even Wooly himself is dissatisfied, explaining that while he would love to write music for the pictures, he's instead been relegated to the mascot role.
Right.
He's a fixture. He's a figurehead. He's a token.
Yeah.
You might even say, but nothing more. And Danny agrees. What a waste of your talent.
Yes.
I still, the whole time, wondered why he didn't request like a better trailer or something that didn't cause him to like tilt everything off its axis every time he walked back and forth, which is a huge point of comedy in the scene. But
maybe he has requested
exactly. Maybe that's part of the point that's being made. Maybe he didn't have a trunk to stand on.
Whoa.
So many broken dreams.
We find that Wooly, while not holding out hope for his own musical career, has kept an ode to many broken dreams, a wall of pictures of animals performing, glamorous in the spotlight, showing off their talents, including Sawyer.
Such a dancer, with the voice of an angel.
I never would have guessed.
Oh, that's what this town does to you, my boy. Wears you down.
This makes things click into perspective even for my child self. No wonder Sawyer and the other animals are so cynical. They can have all the talent in the world and still be blockaded from their dreams, forced to meow on command simply because they are animals.
But I thought Hollywood was always looking for new talent.
Talented people, not animals.
You see, the spotlight will never be on fellows like you and me, and it's foolish to think otherwise, Danny.
That cuts deep.
This is where the importance of the humanoid animals comes in.
Yeah.
Much like, as we talked about last time, Who Framed Roger Rabbit did earlier, and Zootopia would do after.
Yes.
Cats Don't Dance examines the relationships between different beings occupying the same world, which allows for much bigger conversations about racism, classism, and prejudice.
And this is really where this movie
It
shines. And it's very, very important.
As David Kirshner said, in the 1930s, it was almost impossible for anyone who looked different from the mainstream, which I'm inserting white, or had an accent to succeed in Hollywood, and those who did found themselves largely typecast. We wanted to refer to that struggle for recognition in this story using the animal characters as a metaphor. This brought the concept down to my level very effectively, being a kid when I watched it. And if 6-year-old Kaylin could be outraged about this in 1997, it's kind of insane to me that so many grown-ups still aren't outraged the way that they should be. It's also just employing an echo of something that we discuss often, which is Aesop's fables. And all of the descendants of Aesop's fables, because it's using animals to tell parables and stories, which has been key in translating complex topics to children for hundreds of years now.
Yeah.
I wanted to get a little more real-world history on this topic too, preferably from some Black and people of color sources, because obviously the resolution of segregation in Hollywood was not nearly as immediate or as complete as it is in Cats Don't Dance. And I won't be able to adequately contextualize or relay all of the information in this article, so I do recommend that you continue reading it on your own. My cat's walking in front of my screen. But I found a recent IndieWire article from Carol V. Bell called How Black Actors Broke Through in Old Hollywood, Day to Day, Role to Role.
Okay, wow.
The article focuses on an exhibition conceived and produced in partnership with the National Museum of African American History and Culture. This exhibition spotlights film and photography curator Dr. Rhea Combs, and it's called Regeneration, Black Cinema, 1898 to 1971. And it's on display at the Detroit Institute of Arts through June 2024. So it's on display still right now.
Oh, wow.
And it's spectacular proof of the important and intriguing work created by Black artists despite extraordinary barriers before and during Hollywood's golden age of the 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Wow. Okay.
So this exhibition highlights Black contributions to film literally from the late 1800s because
that's incredible.
Black actors and creatives were working just as much to create film as a medium. There's so much independent filmmaking from Black artists in that time as well. And I just couldn't include everything in this, but I wanted to so badly.
Right.
But I'll try to summarize some of it for you guys here to get a taste of what this exhibition is like and kind of spotlight that struggle from a different perspective than my own, because not only was I not there, I have a very privileged perspective myself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that makes two of us. I want to go to this. I want to take a trip to Detroit. And
yeah,
if anybody has been to it.
Oh, yeah, let us know. Let us know if you've seen it.
Tell us about it.
I'm going to quote some things from this article. Some of it's paraphrasing, some of it's quoting. I want to give credit to Carol Bell as much as possible for this information, but through the 1930s, Hollywood reinforced their distorted version of Blackness by restricting Black actors to comic and subservient roles, and through direction that demanded that Black actors perform stereotypically exaggerated expression and movement.
Yeah.
But there's something revealing even in these troubling images. As projections of power and ideology, early Black film performances produced within Hollywood provide access to a history of ideas that few resources can provide, even when it's a distorted African American experience refracted through white eyes. I'll let you even read some of it.
Sure.
We'll just take turns, shall we?
Within the Hollywood studio system, much of early Black cinema involvement was driven by the popularity of Black art in other forms. As Fordman professor Michelle Prettyman explained, Black cultural expressions, such as jazz and vaudeville, were widely popular in the United States in the early 20th century and abroad. At the dawn of the studio system, moguls were eager to capitalize on the magnetic Black cultural power on display in legendary spaces like Harlem's Cotton Club. Despite the challenge of Black stardom in a time of both informal de facto and formal legal segregation, even at the Cotton Club, performers dominated the stage, but with few exceptions. Black people weren't allowed in the audience.
It really goes to show how much Black history, Black contributions have shaped entertainment and still been kept out of entertainment at the same time.
They weren't allowed in the audience. So they were
performing.
Allowed to perform.
Almost exclusively.
For white
at this
people.
club. For white people, correct.
Whew.
The article emphasizes that especially through the propaganda and media surrounding World War II, though several Black artists were earning the adoration of the public, and while Hollywood wasn't the Jim Crow South, Black artists still struggled to make ends meet in the city. Quoting from this article from people that lived it and were there. You're on set, you're doing the thing, and the minute you leave, you're no longer an asset. You're just a Negro taking up space. No one was safe once they left set.
Sounds like a few neighborhoods near where we live.
Honestly. And during this period, Black actors really weren't seeing eye to eye on how they should handle this because they're being marginalized altogether. But certain ones of them were gaining more success, more notoriety, and they were getting into these, they got a seat at the table, sort of. They were getting more opportunities to voice how they felt. And of course, some of these Black actors, like this article highlights, were then saying you need to expand your thinking when it comes to Black actors. You shouldn't relegate them to certain roles, etc. And this was angering a lot of people, and it was causing, Black actors to not be hired at all because then people didn't know kind of how to align themselves or how to handle it in positions of power.
So people who were finding success were like, stop rocking the boat.
Exactly.
It's going great
people
for
that
me.
were, not even just that it's going great, but I'm making a paycheck and then suddenly I'm not, which we see reflected in Cats Don't Dance, which I thought was an important part of why we should bring this up. There were definitely a lot of conflicting viewpoints, we'll say, which I just sent you a quote that kind of highlights that.
But Black artists' views on how to deal with the constraints of the industry weren't uniform. Black performers disagreed over what roles to take, how much to conform, and how much to push against those constraints. There was palpable resentment. There was gossip. Black actors spoke out against the most vocal. If you're not going to play maids, what are we supposed to do? Wow. Okay.
It's really tough. It's really difficult. And it's part of the reason why it was so hard for me to kind of get these notes in my head, because you want to pay, respect to every perspective, but they, even Black actors did not have a unified perspective on this because of all this nuance.
Because if your role in society is to be a servant. You don't have a lot of agency. You don't have a lot of autonomy in society.
Right.
So I could see where, like, when you view, like, I want to play somebody who is important in a film. I want to play somebody with, like, significance. It's like, well, what does that look like? If this is a representation of real life, of our culture, of our world, the only options you have.
The real world didn't look like that yet.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very.
That's so difficult.
There's a lot of mention of that in this article because there was a film that was called Imitation of Life, I think. I'm maybe speaking out of turn because I read this. It's such a great article and I read the whole thing today, but it was talking about how a certain actor's performance in a subservient role was one of the motivating factors to see Black actors as more talented, as bigger than these boxes that they were being put in.
Right.
So it's interesting to me too that the art itself could shine light on that and could increase awareness for mistreatment. It could do all of those things, and it had the power to do that if done correctly.
Right.
And respectfully.
Goodness gracious.
Obviously, sometimes playing a stereotype was the only opportunity in town, so performers would make do and tried when possible to also imbue restrictive roles with humanity. There were others who felt so strongly about this that they would not take such roles and would speak out openly against the injustice of them. And a lot of those people eventually paid prices, not only just being, blacklisted from Hollywood studios, but also in governmental issues like having their passports revoked. So they would pursue these people and basically silence them. It's just...
It just feels so similar to, like, people's green cards and shit. Like, you're going to get deported.
Right.
If you step out of line.
I mean, if the government's going to fight against you, you're going to lose.
Yeah, right.
Because you're here. And it's really unfortunate in so many ways.
So these are ongoing issues.
After World War II ended, the desire to include Black artists on screen in these bigger roles kind of faded out again. And there weren't studio films with all Black casts for another decade after this. Which is a stark reminder that any progress, including the progress the industry has made even today, needs to be carefully guarded.
Yes.
And acknowledged as progress.
So if you find yourself wondering, why isn't there a White History Month?
Oh my God, I can't even go there. Because white history is history, and that's what's so messed up about all of it.
Yeah.
Overall, again, I'm sorry that I cannot relay the whole history of Black artistry, nor any other group here, and I wish that I could. But I think that the main takeaway for the purposes of our allegory is to really look at the way that this story spotlights the unjust treatment of any marginalized group, and not to assume that this kind of treatment is over and done with, despite the progress or advancements we have made. Because I think it's up to all of us, us being the two of us Darklings, millennials, etc., to do better today in whatever ways we can, both individually and systemically, to continue to break down the echoes that still linger now of this stark mistreatment and abuse.
How do you equalize the scales? You weigh one side down until they're both even.
Denny? Oh, yeah. Foolish.
There's a pause in our film, a quiet moment while Danny reflects on Woolie's words, and you think, just for a second, that he might also be ready to accept this doom and gloom, the whims of the establishment weighing heavy on him.
Unless...
But this only lasts for a moment, because Danny says...
We can remind them.
Of what?
Why they came here in the first place.
And like any good Looney Tune, clearly, Danny's got a plan. Danny decides that the best way to get the humans to believe in the animals is to first sort of trick the animals into believing in themselves again. The next day on the lot, Danny gathers the extras and does what he does best. He begins to sing.
If we all work together, we can make our dreams come true. Let's show the world what we can do.
Pudge joins in on the trash can drums, Tarzan style, and Woolie wheels out the ivories, which is ironic in a lot of ways. And soon, Danny's roping everyone into a rousing jam session of I've Got Rhythm.
It did remind me of Tarzan, yeah.
Even Sawyer can't help but be moved by the beat as she types away upstairs, tortured poet style. Eventually, she shimmies down the fire escape to see what the buzz is, but she's still skeptical. Then Danny offers her his hand. And soon, Sawyer's putting on a show all her own. I kind of like that his big master plan was just to play music and let them feel it, because that is where the power is, for man, animal, or otherwise.
Right.
I think that the music is what brings us all to life.
Music is innate. Music is history. We've discussed this a number of times, especially with ever since the Tale of the Dark music. From
Tale of the Dark music started us on our journey.
Thank you,
and
DJ
music is
McHale.
such a huge part of our humanity, and it's part of the glue that kind of binds us together.
Like last episode, you said that dancing is one of the earliest human art forms. It's all rhythm. It's all movement, motion, music, dancing, singing. All of this is tied together.
We need it.
What is that hideous racket?
This jam session is juxtaposed with Darla in her face cream in her dressing room, who also comes down to investigate the commotion.
Just look at those fools. Laughable, isn't it, Max?
Max, or at least his lower half, joins the party briefly before being reprimanded.
Danny, too tall for the frame.
And Danny shares that he's planning to get them an audition with LB Mammoth, the CEO of the studio, convinced that once he sees their talent, he just won't be able to deny it.
You're dreaming, Danny. Maybe I am. But so were you just a few minutes ago.
I have always loved that line so much.
He got her. She can't deny it.
Because she can't help but dream when her talent is showcased like that, and she's appreciated for it, as she should be. As you might expect, Darla overhears this plan and is absolutely outraged.
Max, invite that cat to tea.
Tea!
She hatches her own evil plan.
Yes, the most sweetly menacing
conniving.
Tone. This genuinely did scare me a bit at 6 years old because you know nothing good is coming for Danny.
I'm still scared of little blonde girls.
And this brings us to section 3, which I have entitled Shirley Temple versus Darla Dimple. There were so many directions that I could take this that I almost couldn't choose, like a section like this or to talk about Darla in general.
Yeah.
But I wanted to try to touch on a few facets of the inspiration behind Darla as a character. First off, though, we need to address something.
Yeah?
Sound off, listener, on your opinions. Christian, do you believe that Darla Dimple, after watching the whole movie, is actually a child?
Oh. Well,
while this was not something that I even considered when I was a child myself, I am now questioning it.
I don't know what the intention was, but she's way too mature for a child and also has no parental guardianship.
Involvement.
Other than her bodyguard.
It kind of blew my mind. And any listener that was, ahead of us on this, good for you, way to go. But as a 6-year-old, I kind of just gave the benefit of the doubt that she would also be a child like me, and I was watching a movie about children and animals.
Yeah.
But as TV tropes pointed out, Darla could be, in fact, much older than she appears. They cite the cigarettes that she uses to stunt her growth. Apparently she smokes at some point. I have missed it. But apparently
I don't remember her smoking.
I don't remember her smoking either, but they cite it, and tell us if we're right or wrong. But they talk about her smoking, so that's one thing. But also, all the face cream.
Yeah.
And all the beauty treatments and things that we do see her doing, I'm not unconvinced. I'll say that much.
I was thinking the whole, you mentioned Shirley Temple. I was thinking the whole, pageant child, beauty queen. I'm thinking JonBenet Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm thinking.
Well, yeah, there's that
Which
too.
is, she died in 96. So unfortunate timing for this film, I would say.
I would say that as well.
I wondered if there wasn't a connection, but
there's definitely like this connection to Shirley Temple and the idea of a child star, and they treat her, somewhat like a child star, but in other ways they treat her like an actress, not just a child.
It's a caricature. It's an entity of sorts that is a child star, but not a child.
So this theory, hopefully I've just blown your mind as much as mine was as I researched, listener. This theory kind of flips all of my commentary on its head because I don't know how to take it or how to put it.
I'm just wondering what your logic is.
We can either assume that she's a child and work from there, or we can assume that she's not.
Yeah.
And the more that I think about it, the more that it does make sense that she would be at least older than she looks.
Well, that explains the panties. But how old are we talking? Because, she has a long way to go before that's okay.
Yeah.
Because she looks to be about 6 years old.
And I don't know, even if we agree that she is in fact older than 6, I don't know what age we could age her at, even still.
This isn't like the Orphan movie.
No. Regardless of her age, This is what we would call a classic bad soup, or great in the case of creating a villain. So let's look at these pieces and parts and see if we can't come up with a satisfying whole picture.
Okay, break it down.
It was said by the filmmakers that Darla as a character is based on or spoofing a combination of personas, including the beloved Shirley Temple, which is obvious from her appearance. And I went ahead and took the liberty of pulling some facts about Shirley Temple from a Yahoo article about her memoir so that we could immortalize her among the Pretty Dark alumni, because if we'd actually learned from the legacy of Shirley Temple, we may not have had a quiet on set.
Really? Okay.
Just in general, as a child actress, she went through hell. For her part, Shirley Temple Black was Hollywood's #1 box office draw as a child actress from 1934 to 1938 and was later named United States Ambassador to Ghana and Czechoslovakia and also served as Chief of Protocol of the United States.
Yeah, I just looked her up and I was like,
kind of a badass.
Wrong Shirley Temple, where's the child star? Same person.
Same person.
That's incredible.
But Shirley's own life is not without its darkness. She had made 29 films by the time she turned 10 years old, and she certainly didn't live any kind of fairy tale existence.
It's just so sad. Yeah, Shirley Temple, Judy Garland, like all these people they just had these terrible, terrible upbringings in Hollywood when they were young.
Absolutely terrible. Abuse.
Rampant.
These are quotes, so I'll share the reading burden with you.
During the years of her greatest fame, she worked punishing hours, received death threats and inappropriate advances, and retired at 22 with just $40,000 in the bank. She once said, "I stopped believing in Santa Claus at the age of 6 when my mother took me to see him in a store and he asked for my autograph." Damn, dude.
She really
That's
grew up
crazy.
so much faster than she needed to. And unfortunately, it was kind of a blueprint.
Forced.
Being that initial child star, breakout child star.
Right.
For what was to come in Hollywood in a lot of cases. At 3 years old, Shirley began taking dance lessons, and she soon appeared in baby burlesques, spelled Burlesks, which were short parody films that she would later call a cynical exploitation of our childish innocence that occasionally were also racist or sexist.
It's just so messed up.
It's awful. And she said these were an education in other ways too, because when Shirley or one of her young co-stars misbehaved on set, they were made to sit on a block of ice in a locked, windowless sound booth.
Oh my God.
In her memoir, she wrote, "So far as I can tell, the black box didn't do any lasting damage."
Wow.
I'm so sorry, Shirley, but I figure you're probably not right about that. She began receiving death threats and kidnapping threats with such frequency that her terrified parents set up an elaborate security system with guards that patrolled her family's gated home, says John Kaysen, who is the author of The Little Girl Who Fought the Great Depression, Shirley Temple and 1930s America.
The scariest incident occurred in 1939 when promoting her upcoming film, The Bluebird, at an LA theater. A deranged woman in the front row stood up and aimed a handgun directly at Shirley. The woman, who believed that Shirley had stolen her daughter's soul, was subdued, but it was a horrifying close call. Wow.
Horrifying is right.
But was she right?
We don't know.
Was she deranged or was she right? Maybe she was correct. It is Hollywood after all.
Shirley did she was pretty tongue-in-cheek about it, I think, from the things that I saw later in life. She had this attitude that was so unflappable. She was just yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Steal his daughter's soul.
Jesus.
That's a lot.
Despite the many millions that Shirley made for Fox Studios, in 1941, Shirley was dumped due to slumping ticket sales. Her contract was picked up by MGM, which had a new plan for the then 11-year-old. Quoting, "First we get rid of the baby fat, then new hair," Shirley recalled being told by producer Arthur Freed before he unzipped his trousers and exposed himself to her in his office.
Speaking of, did you hear that Weinstein's sentencing, his appeal came through?
I can't even think about it.
It was reversed.
Yeah. It was overturned because too many women came out against him with too many testimonies.
Oh, so there were too many reasons to keep him locked up, so they just repealed it?
Yep.
God damn it.
Shirley said that she reacted with nervous laughter, and he was taken aback by this and threw her out of his office.
Oh, because she laughed at his penis?
Because she laughed at his penis.
Wow. Good.
At the peak of her career, Shirley commanded a salary of $10,000 a week, earning her a healthy $3.2 million.
Wow.
She'd also earned money from dolls, clothing, and other items which bore her likeness. So at 22, she was understandably shocked to learn that her bank account contained just $40,000.
Jeez, yeah, I was wondering why it was so low.
97 cents of every dollar she made was gone, said Kaysen, who explains that Shirley's father squandered her money on bad investments.
Dude.
No doubt they also bought a bigger house and used it on family expenses, he adds, but Shirley didn't blame him. She thought that he was badly advised.
Okay, then. All right.
With all the pluck of her childhood self, Shirley persevered. She is quoted as saying, "I've led 3 lives. The acting part, wife and mother, which is a career, and international relations. I'm proud of my career, the first one, and I'm proud of the other 2 also."
Well, it sounds like she has a pretty level head, and she just sort of takes all of it.
Just learning the little bit that I did and the little bit that I've shared with you about Shirley Temple and her career, I am in awe and shocked and saddened and disheartened and also encouraged, because what a legend, you know?
Right, for real.
Like, holy shit. Did you know that she only just passed away in 2014?
Only because I just looked her up and I was just trying to get
She's
a feel.
only been gone for a decade, which is wild to me.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Rest in peace, please. Sweet, sweet Shirley Temple.
I think I always kind of assumed she died young.
Yeah.
It also surprises me that, like, Judy Garland lived so long. Like, I don't know why it's in my... I think because of John Benet Ramsey, I think that all these, like, very talented child stars and, like, famous children die young. I don't know why. I believe that.
I mean, some of them do, but...
I feel like it was a staple of, like, my understanding of the world.
We're just lucky. We're very lucky that we got to experience Shirley Temple as long as we did as a society.
Yeah, for sure.
But Shirley wasn't the only piece of the Darla Temple puzzle. Darla's namesake, 20s and 30s child star Darla Hood, was the original Darla from our gang, aka the Little Rascals.
Oh, wow.
And rounding out her personality,
Darla,
the filmmaker said, was character Norma Desmond,
okay,
who is the main antagonist of Billy Wilder's 1950 film Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah.
And the character was portrayed by the late Gloria Swanson.
Amazing. I love Sunset Boulevard.
Norma is a classic Hollywood archetype of the delusional woman. She's also the source of the famous line, "Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up."
Have you ever watched that movie?
I haven't watched it, but I read a synopsis today, and I wish that I hadn't.
I watched it a few years ago. It cuts deep, dude.
Yes.
Watch it. Seriously.
Max, if you're unfamiliar, is a point of playing up this reference to Norma Desmond in name and appearance, recalling Erich von Stroheim's sinister character Max von Mayerling, who is also from Sunset Boulevard.
Wow, yeah.
Max in this movie feeds Norma's illusions and never questions her crazy whims.
I did not put that together.
Her relationship with Max in that film is pretty twisted. And Norma's character is delusional to the point of literal murder. That's pretty dark.
Yeah, I'll say.
Norma's character is said by at least one in-depth research paper I found to have exhibited all of the hallmarks of borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
In that her undesirable behaviors are consistent with the elements of abnormality, including suffering, social discomfort, dangerousness, and irrationality and unpredictability. In the film, Norma Desmond, being one of the greatest movie stars in history, suffers as she experiences the fall from stardom. And she also suffers from identity disturbances as she reaches an unstable self-image notion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't intend to vilify borderline personality disorder in any way, but I think as it relates to a villain character, in both of these cases, it's important to note the extremely and exponentially negative effects that compounded unresolved trauma can have, not only in individual lives, but the ripple effect to the lives of those around them. And obviously, trauma is a huge part of the Hollywood story for so many. Even recognizing this mental health or mental illness issue, we don't need to give people, even children or suspected children, a pass for behavior that deliberately harms, harasses, or abuses others, wherever that behavior is rooted. And I'm sure that some of the most notorious divas, if you want to call it that, of whatever gender, by the way, became so due to malice without a mental health struggle. I'm just trying to create conversation and attempt to look at things through new lenses. And it's really hard to address every aspect of like so many of these like heavy hitting subjects. Because everything here is so complex and layered.
Yeah.
But I'm doing my best to shine light where there needs to be light.
The craziest thing is to me is they took this like what's now a cliche of Hollywood, you know, from this old noir film, from old Hollywood, of an aging actress.
Sure.
And they applied all of these, you know, tendencies to a child star. They brought it all down to like the opposite end of the spectrum.
They did. But now looking back at it, is she really a child star?
Well,
that's the thing.
That's the question.
We don't know.
If she's not a child star, she's still young.
Younger than Norma Desmond. potentially.
Decades younger.
I do recognize that Darla's fictional depiction is meant to be a literal, categorical villain, more played for comedy than anything. And I can't argue that it makes for a spine-chilling, two-faced character when you're 6-year-old Kaylin.
Ah, yes.
But overall, I just find it interesting that they gave this little girl a personality or personality disorder, if you want to take it that far, reminiscent of a fully grown woman character.
Absolutely.
And if she was, in fact, older than she looked, you then have to get into how women in Hollywood are spurred to grow up quick while also not being allowed to age, and are often valued for how well they can get away with playing characters significantly their junior.
Dang.
It would make anybody crazy.
Yeah, that's a strong point.
That's just how I feel.
That becomes your whole identity, your whole self-worth is your ability to, steal the show.
Alexa, play Nothing New by Taylor Swift and Phoebe Bridgers. And not in defense of Darla, but in general, if the feminist movements of the last 100 years have taught us anything in real life, it's that categorically villainizing hysterical women is a very bad, very misogynistic, very prejudiced idea.
Right.
Because I've met just as many, if not more, hysterical men.
I feel like I'm one of them.
You can be.
You want to see my mood swings?
Zooming back in.
I don't.
Max brings Danny to Darla's perfectly pink dream house mansion on the premise that she's going to apologize for Max's misbehavior on the little Archangel set, which she does.
Yeah.
No. It was terrible. Awful. Cruel. Inappropriately violent.
As she munches on animal crackers, eating the heads,
biting
and
off the
tossing the bodies Danny's way. This plays on multiple levels because you're seeing this spoiled starlet trope, like I only eat the green M&Ms, I only eat the heads of the animal crackers. But it's also this not so thinly veiled threat.
And when you think of the allegory, how dark is that?
So dark.
Seriously.
Even as a kid, I thought that this device was really smart because she spends half of their conversation poised to bite the head off of a cat cracker.
So smart.
It's really on the nose, but it's done in a silly enough way to get away with it. And I think it hammers home that predatory vibe for kids who would be watching.
Of course, yes.
The whole time they're speaking, she's also calling him by the wrong names, which is a classic way to undermine and invalidate someone. I try not to assume this is what people are doing to me when they get my name wrong or spell my name wrong in emails, but this scene is in there real deep. Real deep, y'all. Darla asks how she can make it up to Danny. What does he need? And while he hems and haws, she gets progressively more manic, steering the conversation, complete with an eye twitch, which I also have right now, by the way.
You do.
Other animals to perform for LB Mammoth?
Why, Dennis, I'd be delighted. Maybe you can all do a number in my movie.
And Danny tentatively agrees, recognizing this is probably too good to be true given her previous on-set behavior. He suggests that he could sing a romantic ballad and maybe Wooly could play a piano solo. And these suggestions tilt Darla's halo.
You really want my advice?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, please.
And this launches Darla into the most memorable, I would say, musical number of the movie, Big and Loud.
Big and Loud.
I've seen 'em come and I've seen 'em go. There's one thing that I know. You gotta give the people what they want, or you'll wind up back in Kokomo, Nebraska.
Indiana.
Because Nebraska is a Hollywood euphemism for a dumping ground of people who'll never be able to make it in Hollywood.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a real
it's
thing?
Like a common thing, yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
She continues to sing, they like it big and loud, big and loud. Max interjects even. He says, "Get hot, Miss Dimple."
Get hot, Miss Dimple.
Get hot, Miss Dimple.
They even have her lick a lollipop, I guess, to drive home the Shirley Temple connection.
Just so much. There's too much to it.
As you said before, Christian, while it is a great number, it still very much represents that highly desired, always leaving adoring men in her wake starlet persona.
Dude, it's the, I forgot about this. It's not just the fact that you can see her undergarments. It's the fact that there are these grown men fawning over her.
Yes. They're
just couldn't
basically
be
salivating
happier
over her.
to be like abused by her.
If she is indeed a child, it's a little weird to watch this.
Yeah.
But again, maybe she isn't. And I'll try
even
to be
if she
clear in
isn't,
saying,
I don't know, she still looks like she's 6 years old.
Right, that's still a problem. You're exactly right. You're absolutely right about
It's
that.
not like she pulls off the makeup and she's 25. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I don't know.
I'll try to be clear in saying that I really don't think that this scene or the film at large is seriously sexualizing her per se, nor do I intend to sexualize her.
Yeah.
But with the abuse that we know that has plagued children in the industry, it's hard not to want to be on guard and think more critically about what kind of treatment this might be normalizing.
Like I said, it's just timely that we're covering this so soon after Quiet on Set. And it wasn't intentional. This was already on our list to cover this year.
It's true.
It was already on our calendar.
And on that note, I'm just going to go ahead and make a blanket That's Pretty Dark statement that on any set, in any professional environment, there is an innate power imbalance between the executives, the crew, and the cast, especially when there are children in the cast. And regardless of the beliefs or attitude of a child star, the adults around that star have a responsibility to be professional and protect the well-being of the children involved.
Yes.
This also goes for situations like you were saying, pageants, sports, music endeavors, all of it.
Absolutely.
Any performer should feel comfortable to speak up about how and why they are uncomfortable and have the situation rectified in order to make the best product in the most respectful way.
Could not have said it better myself.
That's just a given, and it should be a given.
And I don't know when exactly this happened. I haven't researched this, but having worked on a few movies with children, actors, there are very strict constraints that only allow children on set for a certain amount of time, a number of hours in the day. And once that time is up, they got to go because it's tied closely into child labor laws.
Yeah, put in place to protect children.
Yes, there are things in place nowadays that help protect them and keep them children.
If followed properly.
Yes, well, yes. And they must if it's a union production.
Darla puts a cherry on top of the performance, laying suggestively on the piano and closing Danny's open jaw for him.
Leaves you kinda speechless, don't it?
She sends Dino on his way with a promise to take care of LB if Danny takes care of the rest, but asks him to keep it between them.
I don't like to advertise my charitable work.
Oh, sure.
She then, when Danny is gone, makes a phone call to ensure that LB's Friday press conference is still on, still putting on that false sweetness. During this whole final interaction, the register of her voice is steadily climbing, which adds to the tension, and it becomes so tight that an explosion is guaranteed. And boy, do we get one. With the deed as good as done, her evil, maniacal laugh echoes through the room, and she crawls toward the mirror with ominous organ accompaniment. And thus is born some incredible pretty darkness. It's your classic villain monologue, revealing her evil plan to the audience, dipping into surreality as she sings about how she didn't get where she is today by letting herself get pushed around. And honestly, in another wig, in another moment, in another movie, this could be empowering.
Right.
Take no shit, take no shit, Darla. I don't want her to either. But
yeah, take what's yours.
Her perception of being pushed around isn't exactly accurate and basically translates to, if someone else gets more attention than me, all bets are off. This falls more in line with how a narcissist perceives hostility in those around them or their intentions and responds in kind.
Right.
She's so far on the defense of her own fame that she goes on the offense, which is a painfully accurate representation of how narcissism often does reveal itself.
Right.
This song, though, is the reprise of Big and Loud.
I loved this.
She says, when they fall, they'll really fall. And they're going to fall big, and they're going to fall loud.
Yeah, buddy.
And this is all underscored by a frightening dreamlike sequence where Danny and Sawyer are imagined running for their lives, falling off cliffs, and drowning in whirlpools. I also smirked when I realized that a waterfall and a whirlpool like we see here also feature heavily in Mark's next movie, Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, that's true.
With the ending lines of the song, we see Max attaching hot curlers to Darla's hair, which electrify but somehow don't electrocute her. And she ends it with the incredibly memorable loud, and her eyes hauntingly reappear for a brief zap as the lights cut out.
That's where I got the whole Ursula thing from the Little Mermaid.
I can see that.
That feels very, because, with the eels and everything.
There are a few scenes that I remember better from my childhood than this one.
To me, this is where I kick back on the whole concept of her being older than she actually is. Because this is the only and perfect moment to reveal that she is actually older than a child star.
Right.
This is where she removes the makeup. This is where she takes off the wig.
So you're of the opinion that if that it was their intention, they would have revealed it to the audience.
There would have been a reveal that she was not a little girl.
I don't disagree with you. I saw nothing in my research to indicate that she was intended to be older. It was just a really interesting play on it that I kind of uncovered as it went.
No, I think it's interesting to like explore, but I think that if it were a Disney film and they wanted to go like 90s Disney with it, that would have been their angle.
Yeah.
She's not a child. She's a grown woman who looks like a child. And that would have been dark as hell.
It would have been
super cool.
Really dark.
That would be awesome.
They could have done it. I think we've also got to take our hat off for Lindsay Ridgway one more time, because the vocal performance in this song is unmatched, and the way that her just everything, the resonance of her voice, all of it is so haunting, and it will keep this song stuck in your head for days on end. Ask me how I know.
It's bigger and louder than the first time you heard it, and it's exactly what I wanted the song to be. And then it was, and I was very happy.
Pretty much a perfect villain song.
I was very pleased.
And that wraps up our segment on Darla Dimple.
My goodness.
But I swear, I tried to wrap up the whole plot succinctly, and honestly, the pacing of the film feels a little bit off to me, because as a kid, I felt like the flood was like the finale.
It felt like the end, didn't it?
It's closer to the midpoint.
Structurally, the flood is the end of the second act.
But there is still some darkness for us to attend to as we close out our Cats Don't Dance chapter. Danny begins to work on his end of the bargain, which is recruiting the animals for the opportunity of a lifetime to perform for LB Mammoth. Naturally, Tilly helps with this, wrangling in Sawyer. We get a lot of really classic, like, cartoon logic moments.
I can't do this.
And?
I can't do this.
So?
I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah.
TW and the other animals are wary for good reason.
Fortune says rough waters ahead.
And Pudge is preparing to handle their stage management.
Pudge.
It's also time for LB's press conference, where they ask him the secret to his success.
Simple. It's Dimple.
And he begins to describe the recipe for a Darla Dimple movie, as we see the same thing playing out behind the scenes, which was really fun, actually.
Yeah, honestly.
We begin with one part adorable character in jeopardy, as we've just seen Max creep up behind Pudge. And now we see Darla in disguise as Pudge is tied up and gagged.
Sorry, penguin. Put into each life a little rain must fall. Max, mend the vow!
Which he does enthusiastically. Or as enthusiastic as he can be.
As much as he can, yes.
LB says 2 parts perky determination, while Darla screams for more water, and Max rips the valves out of the wall, and water begins to flood the soundstage.
Classic.
LB says, sprinkle in an air of innocence, and she calls for wind, Max. We must have wind. And he cranks on these insane industrial-sized fans. And the pacing is frantic now, switching back and forth, Stir in more water and a pinch of thunder and an itty-bitty dash of lightning. And even as a kid, I knew that this juxtaposition was really good.
It was very good, yeah.
I knew it was like good filmmaking.
Oh, yeah.
But now we've got a full-blown flood on our hands, waves crashing and breaking everywhere, as our animal friends ride it out on the Ark, which is somehow watertight and seaworthy. Right on, set designers.
Yeah, good job, guys. Wow. Construction's
Eventually,
on point.
Darla coordinates the opening of the door, and the floodwaters crash through the backlots, washing out the press conference. Despite some water ski antics and Tilly's attempt to continue to perform for LB while on board the Ark, it's pretty damn scary, this flood. It's all-consuming, and obviously also not an effective means of auditioning.
It's very Pinocchio-esque.
It is very Pinocchio. I would agree.
Your driving stinks.
Oh, well, maybe you could do better.
Danny and Sawyer are arguing over the steering wheel, and they crash through the production offices on a wacky wild goose chase. And as they go down with the ship, LB and Flanagan work together to shout,
"You animals will never
nibble kibble in this town again."
They're harshly locked out of the studio, and Danny is forced to face a silent crowd of well-meaning contemporaries who have seemingly been cast out of their jobs and livelihoods due to his actions.
The whole "you'll never work in this town again" thing. That is a Hollywood cliche, but I've also heard that said and used and referenced a number of times with people like Weinstein, these studio executives making these certain calls for women who are hesitant to do nude scenes in films.
Oh, yeah. No, they'll never work
That's
in
the
this town
phone
again.
call
That's
of, if you don't do this.
Of course. It's always, if you don't comply to this pressure, if you don't do what I tell you, then you're screwed. And that, because, like, you know, 3 people had all the power. That's how that works. That's how a power dynamic and a power imbalance ruins everything.
And of course, that's, Mr. Nickelodeon himself did the same thing.
Right.
It's just so crazy how, like, it became a joke, almost, because it was a real thing that happened behind closed doors that people began to reference.
It's true.
It has a bit of levity.
It's pretty dark.
Yeah.
Thankfully, to save Danny the full brunt of this disappointment, Darla drives by in her limo to reveal to the horrified crowd in a fit of laughter that it was her scheme all along.
She was your little angel?
She said she wanted to help us.
And you believed her?
But I...
Although they've learned that it's Darla's fault, Sawyer is perhaps even more disappointed in Danny now. And obviously it underscores the cynicism that Sawyer tried unsuccessfully to impart to Danny. It's a told you so, but on a far more heartbreaking scale.
Right.
A sad, cleansing rain begins to fall on Tinseltown as Tilly and the rest are licking their wounds inside the neon glow of Pinky's Diner.
Goodbye, showbiz. Hello, farm work.
Well, there's always Broadway. Yeah, Broadway. I hear hippos are very, very big on Broadway.
They're big everywhere, darling.
Cranston asserts that cat ruined our already miserable lives. It's heavy.
Yeah, wow.
Sawyer ducks out into the downpour and gives us some true singing in the rain with a song called Tell Me Lies.
I never believed that there was a rainbow with a pot of gold at the end.
In her song, Sawyer says, I never believed that there was a rainbow with a pot of gold at the end. I'm much too smart for fairy tales like that. Yet here I am again. I thought this time we're gonna make it. Why I thought so, I really don't know. Maybe something in his eyes just told me so.
I felt those lyrics. I felt that.
Yeah. She said, tell me lies and I'll come running. I must have lost my mind. I could close my eyes and tell you just exactly what's coming. Life's gonna turn a little unkind. Because it has for her. So many times. She's been so let down.
Ain't it though?
And is let down even now. It's a down-on-your-luck jazz ballad for the ages, and while she sings, we watch Danny mope through Hollywood landmarks in the rain, seeing his best Hollywood moments reflected in a puddle in the Grauman's Theater forecourt. Tilly, who's been watching Sawyer, is swept away in the romance and inadvertently slides the restaurant with her swooning. She scoots it back.
Tilly!
She advises that Sawyer can still catch him at the bus stop, but of course, this is a movie, and she just misses him as he boards the bus back to Kokomo.
Way down.
Her eyes fill with tears as she finds his hat, and inside a soaked checklist of his big Hollywood aspirations.
So, I guess it's just
On the bus, the driver strikes up a super insensitive conversation with Danny as he chows down on his dinner, and I swear this looks like it could be the same dude who was operating the logging machine in Fern Gully. I thought for a second it was the same voice actor, but it's not.
But this felt very intentional on the part of the writers. This felt like they were like pulling from their own personal experience of probably of wanting to be writers in Hollywood.
The dude's just munching on his sandwich. He's like, did you hear about the disaster at the studio? What were those animals thinking? No offense, but what a bunch of noodleheads. Obviously, they belong back on the farm. Look at them, poor fools. What am I telling you for? You're headed home. You know your place. I mean, I know my place. And he's just going on and on. And when you look at these moments...
He never shuts up.
Yeah, and he really should, because when you look at these moments in full context of the allegory, this is actually a powerful example of the pervasive, insidious nature of racism. How casually it was expressed in the 30s, how matter-of-fact he is about all of it, and he doesn't even care that he's saying it right to Danny's face. Of course, that's the way it is. Why would you believe any different?
Yeah, but it's like, but you get it.
You're you.
You're a smart guy.
Right.
You understand your place in society.
It's sickening, because
it's disgusting.
100 years ago, you know, this is how things were happening. This is very real.
You're headed back to where you belong.
I was surprised by how heavy-handed it was, but it makes sense that they kind of exposed that.
It probably wouldn't have been if it hadn't been animals, you know, to children.
Yeah.
They had a little bit of...
They had a buffer.
Yeah, there was a buffer
which is the whole movie, essentially.
Which, thank God they did, because they really didn't pull any punches at this point.
Nope.
They were going for it, which... I'm glad they did.
Luckily, we're not hopeless for long, because Danny spots Pudge with his knapsack. And once again, watching Pudge be the one that's down and out something clicks for Danny.
Yeah.
And he says to stop the bus.
Jeez! What do you want to stop for? We just barely got started.
Exactly. See you in the movies.
I mean, it's... I cringed a little bit, but it's good writing. It's technically good writing for a kid's movie.
Yeah, as a kid, I loved it.
It's good writing for a kid's movie, I'm not going to lie.
And now we know we're back in business. We see a reunion between the two of them that we don't get to hear, but Danny and Pudge are clearly formulating their heist. Danny sneaks into Farley's offices and adds a few names to the list of premiere invitations, ensuring that their animal friends will be in attendance. And Hollywood's preparations are underway.
All of Hollywood is represented here tonight for the gala premiere of Little Archangel. How about a big hand for Joan Crawford, Cary Grant, W.C. Fields, Clark Gable, and L.B. Mamet.
Carry on.
By the way, y'all, the actor caricatures for the film were designed by artist Dave Woodman, who is a new friend to That's Pretty Dark. He's a talented animator and caricaturist who worked on Ghostbusters, An American Tail, The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and Pagemaster.
What?
He did all the caricatures of real-life actors.
Yeah.
Including the billboards, even.
That's really cool.
He commented on our Instagram, and he wants to come on the show.
Yeah, let's have him on. Hey, man, come on.
Yeah, seems really cool.
A friend of the show. That's awesome.
Darla, in all her faux glory, along with the rest of the animals, file into the theater, and the next order of business is to rig up some magic. Danny and Pudge convene in a convenient storage room behind the screen, which, seeing the flip side of the movie screen, was totally mind-bending for me as a kid. When you just see it flip,
I see this in so many things.
I was like, wait a second. We're going...
This is in so many...
behind the scenes.
Yeah, but like I've never... That's not part of anyone's reality.
No, I don't think it's
to
a
go
thing.
behind the projector screen.
No.
But yet this is depicted
all
in
the time.
so many situations.
And never mind this, like, security and there being
I'm
able
thinking
to
The
access
Sandlot.
any of these areas. Yeah, okay, there you go.
The Sandlot.
Danny and Pudge ready the instruments and the accoutrement, and Danny assures Pudge that they'll go on as soon as the movie ends because they have this captive audience there. The romantic in me does love that the solution is still, and always, let's do a big performance and prove ourselves. I saw a meme recently relating the same sentiment to the potential TikTok ban. The meme was like, you know what this means, guys? It's time for the biggest talent show the town has ever seen.
God. That feels
so
like
funny,
us.
Because it's
That
so
feels
true.
like me as a kid. Like, we put on a little play, me and my sister and like a few people. I don't remember who all was in it. I remember I had a monologue and I was scared to death. But we put it on for all the neighbors. And we just felt like it was our time to shine.
Mm-hmm.
To put on this little performance and like show the whole neighborhood what we got.
Mm-hmm.
Let's show them our stuff, guys. And it wasn't that deep.
Yeah, when I was a kid, me and my neighbor Paige and my sister, we would perform, like, our band was like the name of our street, and we would band in quotes, and we would perform original songs that I still remember, some of which to this day, and they were horrifying now. But
I'm not surprised.
But it's even funnier to me that you bring that up at this moment, because I did make note of the fact I just recently found the video file, which was like a bombshell for my friend group. But I did, in fact, write a play in my high school drama class with a very similar premise to this.
Yeah.
Where the stagehands, of which I was one, throughout the skits from the other classes, it was like several drama classes in the same showcase.
Mm-hmm.
So we acted as the stagehands for each of these skits. But in the very last skit, these stagehand characters performed a parody of, I kid you not, Hard Knock Life. And this performance was just apparently so groundbreaking and incredible. I wrote that it was overheard by, I named him Mr. Golden Mayer, the producer of the studio that they were performing at, Studio B, we called it.
Yeah,
and
right.
these stagehands were then hired as on-screen performers. Like,
wow.
Same exact thing. So
Mr. Golden Mayer.
Mr. Golden Mayer. So, yeah, Catstone Dance was foundational to me. And this whole idea of like, just show them what you got. You can do it.
You got gumption, kid.
And the fact
That's
that
great.
I've actually sung Hard Knock Life in front of a captive audience in high school was complete with my own choreography. It's the only thing I've ever choreographed.
Did I ever tell you that when I was playing D'Iberville in that fort, the haunted fort.
Yeah, the haunted
Halloween thing during October. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who runs the Joe Jefferson Playhouse stopped me after the whole night and invited me to audition for Assassins.
Yeah, because I think you were excited about it at the time. I think you
yeah, but I never went to the audition. Could
have been your big break.
Could have been my big break. I was just so excited about it.
Could have been your big break.
Yeah, so I got chops apparently. Ghostly, spooky dead man chops.
Obviously, we know you can act. It's just not me.
No, I'm passable. It's not great.
They try to prepare quietly, but as this is the climax of a movie, nothing's going to go to plan. And once Max's satellite ears catch on, he immediately arrives backstage, large
He's
and
got
in
like
charge,
dog ears.
and he sticks Pudge to the metal ceiling by way of static electricity.
Yeah.
Danny, look behind you, Danny.
Danny wags a candelabra at him, but it's no match, and we're now engaged in a high-speed chase where Danny finds himself dangling precariously off the roof. Because like I told you, there's always some rooftop peril.
Always a rooftop. Big showdown. You gotta have a roof, apparently a big balloon.
It's also here that we see so much of the CGI that we talked about in part 1.
Right.
With a scream that sounded rather Michael J. Fox to me, Danny falls off the roof, and we think, for a second, that it's over. Till, surprise, he rises up on the giant Darla balloon that's been, erected. He rises up on the giant Darla balloon that has been...
erected.
He rises up on the giant Darla balloon that's been affixed to the theater. Danny manages to get rid of this menacing Max once their positions are flipped by popping the balloon.
How does the kitty cat go?
Meow.
Very good.
Looking worse for wear, which I appreciated, Danny and Pudge return to stage to seize their moment. Danny tells the audience that Darla has arranged for their viewing pleasure and in honor of her love of animals, a special live show with an all-animal cast. This stops everyone in their tracks mid-applause, including the animals themselves. Sawyer's at first thrilled to see Danny, but is dragged out by Cranston. And Darla calls for Max, but Danny says...
Oh, no. Now don't try to share the credit. You're the one who wanted us to perform for LB.
And it's kind of brilliant of him, using her reputation as Darla Dimple, America's sweetheart, lover of children and animals, and
this
the
is
whole
her
audience
idea
against her. It's really the only way that you could have accomplished anything is by using this against her.
If you don't like it, blame her.
His friends try to skip out, or most of them do, and it seems that Darla might be able to get him to run along now, until we find that Sawyer and Tilly have engineered a triumphant return backstage. Tilly's holding everyone in her arms. Don't let him go, Tilly.
I love Tilly the hippo.
I do too, so
She's
much.
the best.
And this leaves room for one more impassioned speech.
If you're willing to accept what they think of you, then you can go. I almost did.
They retort in animal puns.
Always playing the scapegoat, quickly forgotten.
Working for scale.
When I watched the movie, I was like, she's going to talk about the scale, the fish scales.
I can't not talk
she's
about
gonna
like
talk-
a string of good puns. That's like
She's going to talk about how an elephant never forgets.
Uh-huh.
Fishes have scales. What was the third one?
Scapegoat. Cranston's a goat.
And the goat, of course.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Can't let it pass by.
Scapegoat.
But Danny asks what's called by TV tropes an armor-piercing question.
Then why are you still here?
It's because you can't forget that feeling, can you? When you dance together, when you play, when you sing. They cursed you, humiliated you, and even slammed the door in your face, but they still haven't made you forget, have they?
Damn.
They can smash your cookie, but you'll always have your fortune.
This seals it.
Oh, man. Don Knotts, man.
It is kind of getting kind of more or less rather late.
Which I've quoted that.
I've probably heard that from you and
I've
had
quoted that in
no
my
idea
life.
why you were speaking so incorrectly.
Couldn't be more right. Hit it, bud.
This is eclipsed in a fantastical finale with vignettes for each of our animal friends, and it's only made more fantastical by all of Darla's attempts to thwart it, complete with tons of Looney Tune moments. For example, she pulls the clearly labeled granddaddy of all switches, which allows them to culminate in a giant fireworks display that blows the already pretty fragile, because it has holes in it, because Max punched holes in it, roof right off the place.
Right.
But the audience is enamored, and Darla gets her final comeuppance in a hot mic moment backstage.
Stupid cut! I should have drowned you all when I flooded the stage!
And the whole thing is magnified and amplified to the audience.
That's heavy.
There is no coming back from that.
That
I should
is
have drowned
heavy.
you all.
I should have drowned you all. That's some heavy shit right there. I'm not going to lie.
Freaking dark.
Pretty dark.
Pudge giggles to himself and pulls a handy-dandy trapdoor lever, and down she goes, while she's screaming for Max, who hears her and calls out as he now floats through Paris on the balloon. He made really good time.
Yeah.
The animals celebrate and pair off, and Sawyer pulls out Danny's waterlogged checklist and checks off the last few boxes for him, including get the girl.
Wow. Get the girl.
Check.
Was that on his list, or did she just add it for fun?
I think she just added it for fun. It wasn't on the list as we see it, no.
I didn't think so.
No.
I've only watched this
She added
once.
it to be cute and flirty.
Right.
And it is cute and flirty. It's very cute.
Why am I so much more okay with animals kissing versus two children kissing in like Little Nemo?
Because these animals are adults.
Yeah, okay.
That's why.
I think that's the distinction.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
But their almost kiss, they don't kiss in fact. Their almost kiss is interrupted by Flanagan, and LB jumps in for a photo, which fades to black and ensures a more inclusive Hollywood for all. And this brings us full circle to a fairy tale ending for a fairy tale beginning.
Right.
Because, again, this is an allegorical issue that could never be so cut and dry in real life. And these same prejudices still persist to some degree nearly 100 years later.
That's what makes it a fairy tale, because it's only allegory. It's not real.
So let's do better, Darklings, in big and small ways, and any ways we can.
Damn.
Shall we?
Yeah, we shall.
As for the credits, the animals are showcased on a variety of movie posters proving that they made it. And all of these films would appear much later than 1939. Dindal said, the reason for this: we had all the characters done up in classic movies. To us, they were so much more fun. There were films like Casablanca. I think Singin' in the Rain was the only one that made it into the film. He said it was funnier to see these guys having taken those roles as opposed to Grumpy Old Men or Twister, but that was one of those how to survive decisions. The films we ended up using were all Warner Brothers or Turner titles, like Free Tilly instead of Free Willy.
Right.
If we used others, we would have had to pay fees for the rights to use them, and at that point, there was just enough money left to finish the movie in color.
Right.
The titles that they kept included Singin' in the Rain, The Mask, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Witches of Eastwick, Grumpy Old Men, Superman, Beetlejuice, Twister, Batman and Robin, and Free Willy.
Of course, my favorite was Beetlejuice.
I figured.
Naturally.
So, we've almost reached the end of our Cats Don't Dance journey, but I think it's important that we take a second to look at the reception of the film when it first premiered.
Of course.
It's a wild ride and a really good movie, but unfortunately the charm and wit of Cats Don't Dance was a late realization by most accounts because, well, remember all the changing of the guard that we talked about in part 1.
Right.
That really kept it from getting the promotion or the merchandising that it deserved. Director Mark Dindal recalled,
when we were at Turner, I certainly got the feeling that it was going to be a major launch, that it was a bigger fish for them. I was much more encouraged with what they were talking about doing. At the time, they had successfully launched quite a few things with effective ad campaigns. But when the film went to Warner Brothers, everybody felt it was going to become a smaller fish and it would get lost. I was trying to remain optimistic that it wouldn't happen. I think very objectively, they looked at it and decided there wouldn't be a market for it. It wasn't something they responded to. They didn't think people would eat it up.
This was a mistake that the company would repeat next with The Iron Giant. And during this time period, marketing for animated films ramped up. It wasn't just about posters and trailers, but fast food deals and merchandising. Disney made sure that its movies were in front of every child in America, and Warner did not.
Wow.
Kirshner said, we had no real expectations of competing with Disney, but we certainly wanted a fair shot at being out there, and we never really had that.
Right.
The Los Angeles Times stated that only 15 people, that included a family of 5, attended the first matinee screening in a theater in Pasadena.
Wow.
Producer David Kirshner told the newspaper that he was devastated because the film got great reviews and great exit polls, but no one knew it was out there. It only ended up grossing roughly $3 million on a production budget of nearly $32 million. Dang. I will never understand why they didn't then just toss a few $1 million into promotion.
Yeah.
To attempt to rekindle some of this money.
Yeah, you've lost so much already. Like, what's a bit more to gain it back?
Right. You got to spend money to make money.
Got to.
Cats Don't Dance did become the first non-Disney film to win Best Feature at the International Animated Film Association's Annie Awards, and it opened to solid reviews with critics praising its witty humor, surprisingly mature allegory, and colorful design. But Dindal continued, saying, all the good reviews that we got came too late to have a positive effect. That is, until Cats Don't Dance had its first home video release on VHS and Laserdisc on August 19th, 1997.
Every time.
Warner Home Video. And I bet you that I got this movie for my birthday that week, maybe even from my uncle who took me to see it.
That's incredible. Yeah.
And of course, the rest is history because it had a great legacy on home video. And so many people remember it fondly from their childhood, like me.
All these movies. So much success with the home video crowd. Because, you know what? Parents don't want to take their kids to the movie theaters. They want them to be entertained at home.
They want an at-home version. Don't we know it? Cats Don't Dance is a bit of a relic, not only in its references to the old Hollywood glitter, but also in keeping that zany, Bugs Bunny-like energy alive on the big screen in a way that other animal animations of the time, and honestly even now, aren't quite doing.
Right, yeah.
Quoting Dindal again, we're more analytical about film today. We have more history to look back on, and the cost of making movies is so high that it leaves less room for experimentation. But we're still trying to push the boundaries of the possible, and some of that pioneering, risk-taking outlook is still what makes today's movies great. I like to think that we kind of tipped our hats to the best of both worlds with Cats Don't Dance. It's an homage to the past, but created with the talents of the present and the technology of the future. And the message, giving everyone a chance to be their best by pursuing what they truly love, is timeless.
You're telling me.
Timeless indeed.
Yeah, buddy.
The message of perseverance, talent, and the importance of breaking down barriers has always stuck close to me, and I hope that it has, or it now will, if you didn't know about it before, for you too. So thank you, Darklings, for letting us show some love to Cats Don't Dance and putting up with hours and hours of Hollywood trivia.
Hours.
I hope that you've had your fill of Hollywood lore, cartoon logic, all those things.
Yeah.
And some really, deep, controversial topics.
Yeah, for real, though. I mean, but, that's why this movie belongs on the podcast.
That's exactly why it's here.
Because of all the history behind it, the allegory behind it, the whole point of the movie being made in the first place.
Even things that were just had more depth than you would expect for a child. We cover things like that because that is what raised us.
It's very mature for a film, but man, the whole how animals are depicted in film. It makes me wonder how the new Mufasa movie's gonna do. I just watched the trailer for that this morning.
Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda is doing the music, and I'm thrilled by that. And I mean, I don't like the live action Lion King idea like that.
Yeah,
it gives me a funny feeling, as Bo Burnham would say. But I don't know. I appreciate wanting to bring these stories revamp them, make them new, bring them to new generations, re-release them.
But the whole trailer is just visual references to the original Lion King.
I don't know where we're going, but I'll go.
Like we talked about with the Hocus Pocus sequel. If the best parts of your movie are just references to the original, then it's technically not a good movie. Yeah. So I don't know. But that's just the trailer. Anyway. That's just the trailer. So we'll wait and see.
We'll have to see.
We'll have to see. But damn, dude. Cats Don't Dance. Who knew there was so much? This was supposed to be one episode.
And
I'm blown away that there was so much to this film. I didn't even get into
all the details that I had. I wanted to just try to do justice to all the aspects of this movie, and I hope that I did. I hope that I could.
I'd say you did. I feel like I didn't have much to bring to it because you just laid it out so perfectly.
I laid it out.
It is what it is. That's the allegory. That's everything behind it. Man.
It is.
And you actively have things reserved for, potentially, Patreon bonus content. So
I'm hoping that, we can do some further breakdowns of some of this stuff if it interests you guys on our Patreon.
More of the history, specifically. Just factual breakdowns.
And speaking of Patreon, if you like what we do here at That's Pretty Dark, if you want to get more That's Pretty Dark, you can follow us on our Patreon at patreon.com/TPD podcast. It's only $5 a month, and we're trying to put more content there. I say this every time.
Yep.
But there is definitely some backlog content. There's some video content there. And it's just $5 a month. So, you know, we really appreciate you deciding or making the decision to support us with your... I'm repeating myself too much from the last episode.
Hard-earned money.
Yeah, I said that.
Yeah, no, you said videos. You can watch us talk to each other.
Yeah, you sure can.
You can look at how weird we are.
We've got a few video episodes on there.
Yeah.
We'd like to do more. Yeah, we appreciate you so much if you do contribute, and if you want to, it is there and ready for you. You can also find us on social media at That's Pretty Dark Podcast on Instagram, That's Pretty Dark on TikTok, for now. And
for the time being.
Yeah.
Email us at that'sprettyddarkpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, email us. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you think Darla is actually an old woman in disguise.
I wish she was. That would have been such a dark, creepy
really
angle.
It would have been really great.
God.
But all things being the same, I think Mark Dindal did a fantastic job with what he had.
Yeah, for real though.
As did the rest of the creators. So
well, thanks to you for doing all this research.
It has been a month and a half of my life, y'all.
With the information.
A month and a half. 40 pages of Cats Don't Dance.
That's nuts. I can't believe you just got through 28 pages in like 2 hours.
For y'all's reference, or we were just seeing behind the curtain.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
A typical episode is like 12 to 15 pages, probably.
Yeah.
Something like that. So.
Something like that.
Yeah. There's just so much goodness in this movie. And it was really fun. It was stressful. And
wowie.
Also really fun.
Also a lot of fun. It's almost like we do this because we love it.
You know, when you...
That's nuts.
Sometimes I just have to remember that we do this for fun. And we do this because you guys think it's fun. So...
There's no other reason to do it.
None.
Speaking of just doing things because you love it.
Yeah, that's the whole message of this. Just being able to do what you love. And guys, we love this. So thank you for letting us do it.
Yes. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one. And we will be back in your ears just as soon as we can.
Keep it real spooky out there in your lives. And dance. You know what? Put on your cat costumes and dance.
Yep, definitely.
Whatever animal costume you have
just
on
make
here.
Sure your
just
blinds are closed.
Or open your blinds. Turn the lights on at night. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to That's Pretty Dark. Written and produced by Christian Baxter Mott and Kaylin Andrews.
Our music is composed by Jonathan Simmons, and our art is provided by Paige Garland at Power Girl Illustration.
Join the collective nostalgia and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at That's Pretty Dark Podcast.
Share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you're never really alone.
So, until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.